If you've been trying to fix your money for a while, but deep down it still feels like you're failing, you might be missing something most people never realize about financial progress, because sometimes the biggest changes happening in your life don't feel dramatic at all, and that's exactly why so many people think nothing is working. You stop panicking as much, but you barely notice it. You recover from problems a little faster, but it still doesn't feel like success. You start thinking before spending. You stop making quite as many emotional decisions. You slowly become more careful, more aware, more intentional. But because your life doesn't suddenly look different overnight, your brain tells you, "See? Nothing changed." And after a while, that starts doing something dangerous emotionally. 'Cause when progress feels invisible, you start questioning yourself again. You start thinking, maybe I'm still bad with money. Maybe I'm just pretending to improve. Maybe everyone else is figuring this out faster than I am. And after a while, you stop trusting your own progress completely. Because if nothing feels different emotionally, your brain starts assuming nothing is changing at all. Why this keeps happening? I think a lot of us accidentally learn the wrong version of financial progress. We expect some dramatic emotional shift. Like one day we'll suddenly feel stable, confident, successful, fully in control. But most real progress doesn't happen that way. Most of it is painfully quiet. It looks like fewer financial emergencies, slightly less stress at the grocery store, checking your account less obsessively, recovering from setbacks faster, saying no without spiraling emotionally afterward. Small things, quiet things your brain almost ignores automatically. And because nobody talks about progress this way, people overlook it completely, especially online. 'Cause online progress is usually shown as huge savings numbers, massive transformations, a dramatic before and after moments. So when your life changes slowly, your brain assumes it's not changing at all. And that comparison starts messing with your identity. Because now you're not just trying to improve your finances anymore. You're trying to prove to yourself that you're not failing. And honestly, that pressure changes people more than they realize. Not just financially, mentally too. What this leads to, this is where people quietly start giving up. Not always physically, emotionally. They stop trusting small progress. They stop recognizing improvement. They stop feeling encouraged by consistency. 'Cause if progress never feels real, eventually your brain stops believing it matters. And once that happens, every setback feels bigger than it actually is. One bad week suddenly feels like, "See? I knew nothing changed." One mistake becomes proof that you're back at the beginning. And over time, that creates a really dangerous cycle. And slowly, your emotions become the way you measure your entire financial life. So instead of noticing, "I handled that situation better than I used to," you only notice, "I'm still not where I want to be." That gap becomes emotionally crushing after a while, especially when you've actually been trying. What to do instead? I think part of this changes when you stop looking for dramatic proof that your life is improving. 'Cause honestly, real financial stability usually enters your life quietly. You notice it in your reactions first, in your recovery time, your emotional decisions, your stress levels, your ability to pause before panicking. That's usually where the real shift starts, not in some huge cinematic breakthrough. And I think a lot of people miss that because they're still waiting to feel successful before they allow themselves to believe they're improving. But maybe progress was never supposed to feel dramatic all the time. Maybe the quieter your progress becomes, the more real it actually is. And that's uncomfortable to accept sometimes. 'Cause it forces you to look at yourself differently. Not as someone constantly failing, but as someone changing slowly in ways that are harder to measure emotionally. But this is also where another problem starts showing up. Because when people stop seeing obvious proof of progress, they usually blame themselves. They call themselves lazy, undisciplined, inconsistent, even when that's not actually the real issue. And the dangerous part is, after hearing that long enough, people start building their entire identity around it. Like the problem is who they are, not what they're dealing with underneath. And honestly, that hidden pattern affects more people than they realize. A lot of people think the problem is that they're lazy, or inconsistent, or just not disciplined enough to change their life. But sometimes the real damage starts much earlier than that. Because when you spend long enough believing you're failing, eventually you stop trusting yourself completely. And once that happens, even small problems start feeling heavier than they should.